Indigenous People Day. I'm here at the edge of the Atlantic Ocean, and oftentimes, whenever I would stare out at the ocean, I would wonder, what was it like? What was it like for the first people when they looked out into the ocean and suddenly saw a, a lagoon that looked like nothing that they've ever seen and encountered people like they've never seen before? Well, I am so excited to share with you this book called Encounter. It is written by an Indigenous person, and it's reimagining what it must have been like for one of the first people to meet one of the travelers who came from afar. So I hope you enjoy this story. Encounter, written by Brittany Luby and illustrated by Michaela Goad. Sun rose to light all creation. He woke seagull and mouse from their nests. He coaxed mosquito from a long blade of grass. He chuckled as crab retreated inside her shell. When the coastline buzzed with life, Sun woke the two-leggeds with a burst of light. This is Fisher. He tried to shoo away the sun by wiggling his toes. So Sun tickled Fisher's knees. Fisher rolled onto his belly. Sun persisted and gently warmed Fisher's neck. Fisher woke at last to welcome the day ahead. I will paddle to waters thick with mackerel, he said. Fisher turned his canoe, loaded his nets, and pushed into the sea. This is Sailor. He came from away. He tried to block Sun by pulling a cap over his eyes. Sun peeked through the fabric knit with love. Wake up, Sailor, Sun whispered. At last, Sailor smiled. Today I'll explore unknown lands in a new world. Sailor lowered his boat from the ship and rowed ashore. Sun had not traveled far when Fisher and Sailor paddled into the same bay. Fisher knew the bay like the curve of his fingernail, but Sailor did not know at all. Am I dreaming? Fisher wondered. He rubbed his eyes as Sailor remained. Sailor was puzzled too. Perhaps these lands are not so new. Both Sailor and Fisher hesitated, but the tide did not pause. It nudged them inland and encouraged they pull their boats onto the rocky shore. With his canoe secure, Fisher greeted Sailor. Kui, kui. Fisher watched Sailor's eyes open wide like jellyfish. He speaks a different language than me, Sailor thought, but he replied, Salut, salutations. Sailor watched Fisher's forehead wrinkle like an earthworm. We do not sound the same, Fisher thought, but he waved cautiously at Sailor. You are not different, called the seagull, who flew overhead. Your bodies both cast long shadows. Sailor tried to explain his journey across the water by drawing in the sand. As Sailor sketched, his red wool cap fell to the ground. Fisher laughed. He imagined Lobster had left off Sailor's head to scramble into the ocean. The wind lifted Fisher's hair. Sailor chuckled. He thought Fisher's hair looked like a horse's tail. You have much in common, buzzed the mosquito. You're both delicious. Sun now sat directly overhead, and Sailor was getting hungry. His stomach grumbled. Sailor pulled sea bread from his pocket. He gnawed at the edge of the bread, offering to Fisher, who took a bite. Oh, I would rather chew wood, Fisher thought, and returned the sea bread. Fisher offered Sailor a handful of sunflower seeds. Sailor popped them into his mouth. Oh, I would rather eat pebbles. He spat them on the ground, peppering the ground with unopened seeds, and Fisher laughed. You must crack the shell open. Wordlessly, Fisher taught Sailor how to reach the heart of the seed. Mouse was grateful for the crumbs. Lucky me, said Mouse, a feast. Sun blazed west. Sailor had saw sweat beating on Fisher's chest. Does he not burn? Sailor wondered. He's almost bare. Fisher watched sweat race down Sailor's temples from underneath his cap. Is he not boiling? Fisher wondered. He's heavily dressed. Fisher pointed to the waves, and Sailor beamed. Together they jumped in. Crab woke briefly to admire the swimmers. What fine figures, Crab thought. They each found a shell to suit themselves. Sailor and Fisher returned to the shore, where whistling in the bay alerted them that 2 beluga whales had come to play. Fisher whistled back. Sailor, too. They chased the whales along the shore. Good game! You make a strong pod, the belugas bellowed and disappeared beneath the sparkling waves. Before the sun fell, Sailor and Fisher parted with a sleepy smile. Fisher set up camp. He unrolled a cedar mat under his canoe. Fisher placed tobacco into a fire. He prayed for another friendly encounter and laid down to rest. Sailor returned to the ship. He pulled his straw mat onto the deck. Sailor wished on a star for fewer chores and another chance to meet Fisher before the long journey home. Moon watched Sailor and Fisher fall asleep. She shone on their 10 fingers. She shone on their toes. Moon listened to their 2 hearts beat, ba-boom, ba-boom. She heard the beauty of all living things. There's Sailor, and there's Fisher, fast asleep. Encounter is a work of imagination, but it's based on notes kept by Jacques Cartier, a real French explorer, on his first expedition to what is now known as North America. Cartier anchored his ship in what we now call Gaspé Bay in 1534. While the Migi territory includes this region, records suggest that they share fishing grounds with the Stadaconans in the 16th century. In imagining an open and friendly meeting between a French sailor and a Stadaconan fisher, this story reminds us that in every encounter there is the potential for common ground. Unfortunately, when the explorers arrived from Europe and observed that the land was already inhabited, many disrespected indigenous people claimed to it. European invaders then used physical violence and European law to take indigenous lands and resources for their countries of origin. Millions of their descendants continue to use stolen land. And yet, according to Cartier, the earliest interactions between French sailors and Stadaconan fishers in 1534 were peaceful. Stadaconan families appear to have shared corn and fruit with the French crew. French sailors presented Stadaconan families with glass beads and other manufactured goods. Relationships soured when Cartier captured two Stadaconian men. And in July of 1534, he forced them to go with him to France. It is likely that Cartier used his captives to improve his understanding of North American lands and waterways. About 1 year passed before Cartier returned these men to their families. While we must reckon with this violent past and its hold on our present, the future is uncharted. May we learn from our history and take the opportunity to map a better future. And that is the end of this book. Well, everybody, I hope you'd enjoyed that wonderful book, and I hope you're enjoying your day off. But make sure you think about and learn about the first people who were the first Americans who were here before anyone else and helped to create this wonderful land. Look on our website, www.selfhelpcpc.org, for some wonderful activities to enrich your learning. See you soon!